So in this video, I'd like to share a little bit about what is the secret behind deciphering these monograms or watch signatures. This can be very difficult, and a lot of people are probably wondering, how is it possible to even attempt this? Now, I'd like to do that in this video. So in my last video, I addressed a watch which was circa 1840s, 1850s. Indeed, I compared this with another watch which is more or less, one could tell that this is by the same watchmaker atelier, that the general architecture of the watch, the period, the parts, etc., these all seem to be congruent to a certain watchmaker's atelier, and yet the signatures were a little bit different. Now, in the watch that we clearly could read the signature of the artisan, this was signed Louis Montandon, Geneva. And this much was clear to us. This is probably a watch that is dating no later than the late 1850s, but probably between the late 1840s and 1850s. And the second watch, which was a serial number very closely grouped, however, several thousand below the Louis Montandon Geneva. This is only signed either L. Montandon Geneva or Montandon Geneva. Now, there are probably those looking at the signature and saying this is just an elaborate M. There is no L here. However, there is an old way of these artisans, in general, the handwriting of the period, where they would group the first initial of their name with the last name, and this would be a signature. And we find this in the 18th century, indeed, early 18th century, and continuing into the 19th century. And so how do we get this? Now, in the case where I am demonstrating this L, this is a very archaic sort of a pound symbol, L, which many people might actually think that this is just flourishing on the M. There is a little bit of artistic license here with the engraving. However, I would like to show another example of a relative also signing. Now, this was not a watchmaker. This was a doctor, and we have his textbook of remedies from 1706. And this is Theodore Montandon Bourgeois. Now, that particular genealogical branch is extinct. It was extinct when Frederick Jules Montandon wrote the genealogical treatise Les Montandons. This had gone extinct. However, we do see in his 1706, and I believe he continued writing his treatments in this book until, was it the 1770s or 1780s? He lived to be quite old, and he was reputed to be a successful doctor. But we do see his monogram in this 1706 manuscript, which he started at the beginning of the 18th century. And we see this very ornate T, which is on top of the first M. And this is exactly what we see in the L. Montandon Geneva piece. We see the L, this pound sign L, which is very neatly tucked in front of the M, which continues. And there's a sort of a teardrop hint of an S for this L.S. Louis. And I am very certain that this is the way it was meant to be. This was a very almost Baroque, very stylish L.S. or at least L with the name. And this was an earlier signature of Louis Montandon before he adopted the full Louis Montandon Geneva. But we can tell that these watches were produced by the same fabricant, horological, and they are so closely connected in proximity by dating, by the serial numbers, by the styles of watchmaking employed here, that this is very clear. But it is interesting that when we compare the two, this LM and TM from the doctor's manuscript, we see how they compare side by side. This is just a fascinating approach for the modern person is certainly going to be challenged in trying to read these monograms. That goes without saying that time changes. Indeed, many people have never touched a pencil or a pen except for to sign their own name, but they are not anymore writing nowadays. Everything is typing on computers. Yet, this would have been clear at that period of time, and certainly over the centuries, we have changes, yet this should be very clear and legible to us today. So this is a little bit of this interpretation of these monograms and watch signings, which I did want to share. But sometimes it is necessary to consult period sources that we can see how these trends developed. And this is clearly a stylistic which was preferred. Indeed, this very Protestant Swiss almost anonymity in the early days would have probably been much more sought after by artisans, this sort of humility and modesty. Indeed, we do know for this period naming styles were very heavily influenced in the 18th century by biblical names. We see, indeed, prior to this, but as the decades began to change, then certain styles overcame the biblical names. Then it became Prussian names, as Neuchâtel was a Prussian protectorate. So we see a lot of Frederick Wilhelms or Frederic Guillaume, Frederick August, etc. So we see these Germanized stylistics in the French variations of the Germanic names. This is, and then later we see in the 19th century we see a very Greco-Roman namings coming back with Ulysses, and such names. But this is very interesting to follow these styles and indeed the signing for these individuals. So this is just a short video to share this little secret or this application, the way that we are able to get behind these signatures when it's a little bit not clear. We have to dig a little deeper. We do have to consult period sources to see what the traditions were, because clearly traditions are changing and evolving all the time, and this is reflected in the artisan's signature as well. So I hope this was informative. I hope you found it useful. I would be happy to take any questions, and I look forward to your feedback, and I wish you a nice weekend. Bye-bye.